All right. So now everything you said is fascinating. Now take it now with the lens of what's happening now, where we've got, Anthony Fauci on stage next to Donald Trump, obviously doing these nightly briefings. We've now had the lockdown period. And now, as I said in the introduction, it seems like everyone's pushing this vaccine agenda, including Fauci. What do you see going on behind the scenes? Because you spent a long period of your life researching all of the forces.
Let me just make one other point about the economic drivers for this industry. If you look at the vaccine industry, when I was a kid, it was about a $287 million industry. Nobody was making huge money on it. Today, it's a $60 billion industry, and it is the growth potential for these companies because of all the reasons that I outlined. It has a much, you can't sue them. So, they can just, and it's mandated. And so that, every year there's about 273 vaccines in the pipeline. There's 72 already on the schedule, 273 in the pipeline for the future, and that are in the regulatory process already to get mandated for it. And there's really no end in sight. But if you look, so now it's a $60 billion industry. The industry, the pharmaceutical opportunities for treating injuries caused by vaccines dwarf the revenues from the vaccine industry itself. So if you look at the 20 biggest blockbuster drugs that are now produced, like, Keytruda or whatever, by those four companies, almost all of them are to treat diseases that are listed as vaccine injuries on their own vaccine inserts. Oh, they're making $500 billion a year selling our kids the Adderall, the Ritalin, the Concerta, the albuterol inhalers, the asthma treatments, the diabetes treatments, the seizure treatments, the rheumatoid arthritis treatments. And if you treat measles, what happens when you get measles? It's a rash. It was killing 1 out of every 500,000 Americans in 1963, the year that, imagine that, 1 in 500,000 Americans, according to CDC. If you actually got the measles, your chance of dying was 1 in 10,000. And they're talking about now COVID maybe killing 1 in 100 or 2 in 100. This is 1 in 10,000. This was not a serious disease. And if you got that in 1963 when they did so if you got measles, what happened? The cure, you stayed a week home, and the cure was vitamin D and chicken soup, 2 things that cannot be patented. What if you get epilepsy or seizure disorder from getting an MMR? Now you have a lifetime commitment to those pharmaceutical companies. And if you get ADD, ADHD, if you're on Ritalin for the rest of your life, on Adderall, on diabetes medicine, that is a lifetime of unlimited revenues for that company. Oh, this is a very, very attractive business model for those companies, and they know it. And I can tell you that because I would have never believed it, and I would have said if somebody said that to me, I'd say, oh, they're just a conspiracy theorist and they're a cynic and a skeptic. Of course they don't know, but yeah, they do. And, I'm suing them on it. So I'm in Merck's wheelhouse now. I'm doing a discovery on them, and it's very clear they know exactly what's happening, and they've made a cold calculation. Listen, the 4 companies that make all 72 of those vaccines, which is Sanofi, Merck, Glaxo, and Pfizer, every one of those companies is a convicted felon. Over the past 10 years, those 4 companies have paid $35 billion in damages, in penalties, in criminal and civil penalties, for lying to regulators, defrauding regulators, falsifying the science, bribing, blackmailing doctors, involved in really sophisticated criminal activity at a very, very high level for killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. Merck's blockbuster drug Vioxx before Gardasil. Merck's blockbuster drug was Vioxx. Merck killed between 120,000 and 500,000 Americans deliberately. By deliberately, I mean knowingly. They didn't say we want to kill these people. They did say, because we have their spreadsheets from their bean counters, we got them in Discovery. This is how many people are going to die if we market this drug the way we want to. And we will still make more money, even if we have to pay them all off.
Robert, how do they sleep at night? How do these people sleep at night? I mean,
well, you know what Upton Sinclair said, it's almost impossible for you to convince a man of a fact if the existence of that fact is going to diminish his salary. Oh, we all have a capacity to interpret the world and interpret an event in a way that allows us to tell ourselves, well, we are good people and what we're doing, you know, and we judge ourselves on our intentions rather than our actions a lot of the time. Right. And I think that those companies have a particularly acute capacity for that, you know, particular, I don't know if you'd call it a defect or virtue, but there's, you know, there's a statistical, there's a statistical flaw that is known as by statisticians and epidemiologists as confirmation bias. And what that means is that you tend to have a bias that hides from you facts that are contrary to your worldview. And it's a biological impulse. You can see where it came from, you know, that if you were, you know, when in the 20,000 generations that we were wandering the African savannah as, you know, part of little warring groups, we had to really believe that all the people we were with were right and everybody else in the world was wrong. So it's you know, one of the features of tribalism, and we all have that capacity. The problem is when a guy who is as powerful as Bill Gates has that capacity to see himself as a good man and to see all of his intentions as pure, and then not see that the DTP vaccine that he's giving to every child in Africa is killing 10 kids. It kills children, vaccinated kids, at 10 times the rate as unvaccinated kids will die. And he has in his hands scientific studies by the highest scientific authorities in the world that says that vaccine is killing more children than diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis combined ever did. And that he's giving mercury vaccines to every kid in Africa when we've banned them in the United States because we know that they cause brain damage because the Institute of Medicine said that they're dangerous and they should not be given to human beings. And yet he's giving them to every kid in Africa. You know, somehow under his watch, that WHO, which he runs, chemically castrated 1 million Kenyan women with a hormone that was put in tetanus vaccines deliberately and given deliberately. And I'm sure in Gates's mind, he thinks that there was a good intention behind that. Maybe reducing population and, you know, reducing the burden on ecosystems and all those, which I think is an important consideration.